Peace. You're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Harut, and this is a Cosmic Convos reaction. All right, so this is a new series that we're going to start. Basically, a short form. We're going to pick different videos across the internet and different, forms of media, different things like that, and react to them. All right, and if this is your first time here, I am Harut, and I've been studying and practicing Vedic astrology for well over 10 years, and my co-host for the long-form Cosmic Convos podcast, Ra, he's been studying astrology for over 20 plus years. So we definitely are qualified to speak on what we're speaking on, and definitely, tune into us. You might learn something new. All right. Now, this video here was given to me by a good friend of mine, and it comes from a platform called Middle Ground. And Middle Ground is a platform where basically they take an issue and they bring in parties from two opposite sides of that issue, and then they go and they debate it out, they hash it out. All right. And this particular episode is about astrology versus astronomers, right? Is astrology a hoax, or is astrology a farce, or something like that? I think that's what they're saying. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Sorry, hold up. Before we do all that, make sure you like and subscribe to this video, to this channel, and hit that notification bell as well, or whatnot, so we can keep this thing rolling and get the favorable push from the algorithm. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get to this review, this reaction rather.
Is there a way you can tell if you're wrong or right?
Well, yeah, because
astrology?
I speak to my clients.
I'm Ian. I'm an adventure astronomer and astrophotographer. What I love about astronomy is sharing the passion of the stars with people. I question science all the time. That's the whole point about science.
When I hear of astrologers, I think of people who kind of need guidance. Astrology is not a science. Science is something that requires proof, something that you can reproduce.
I think astrology is just a belief.
So that's the first thing. So, this is part of the reason why we have this platform anyway, because there's a lot of misconceptions about astrology. And one major one is that it is not a science. Astrology is a science. The problem is that the way that it's been brought to the modern world, it has been brought to the modern world by unscientific people. There's too many people talking about astrology, and they're dabblers. They're not really, studying it as a science. And then they have their own different biases, this system versus that system. And they don't really try to seek and find out the truth. They end up kind of staying in a lane where they're more comfortable versus exploring it and understanding what's the real truth. How do you bring proofs? How can you reproduce this particular prediction or different things like that? That's not my experience with astrology. Have been pure scientific or whatnot. But as I talk to other people and see what other people are doing out there in the world, there are people out there that do take a lot of liberties. So that's part of the problem right here. But let's see what else they got to say. All right.
System, and I don't think it makes sense. It's not really a science. I honestly believe that astrology just makes people happy.
Hi, my name is Trenton. I am a spiritual analyst. I definitely believe astrology is a science. We have discovered so much about the metaphysics of things and energies that are hidden.
I think my study benefits people because
I already know what's happening with this, man, because he start going off in the clouds somewhere. You understand what I'm saying? So, they sometimes, man, I wonder, how do they decide who they're going to put on these type of panels and stuff like that, because sometimes they bring people in that are not qualified to be talking about this. Now, I'm not saying the brother isn't qualified, but just hearing his explanation, like if you're a scientific, pragmatic, kind of practical minded type of person, everything he said is just out the door or whatnot. So let's continue on.
greatest gift that you can give someone is self-knowledge. It gives us our own little map of ourselves.
I believe that zodiac signs are totally relevant, but they're just a basis of a much deeper practice. They're the tip of the iceberg.
Step forward if you agree. Astrology is a sham.
You can believe whatever you want to believe in as long as, it makes you happy, doesn't hurt others. But personally, I've just never really understood how, especially since we all study stars, how something that's so far away and that could potentially be gone could affect you when you were born. It just doesn't make sense to me scientifically.
One of the things that they don't account for, astrologers, is as time passes by, there's this thing called precession where the Earth's axis actually makes like a rotation. And these constellations were set like 2,000 years ago. And they still assume that these are the ones that are where the sun is when you are born. And also, you can't split them apart equally because each constellation has different sizes. You don't have the sun in one for 30 days. You just don't.
See, that's a prime example of what I'm talking about right there. Jeez. All right, so what she's talking about is the precession of the equinoxes, right? Now, the reason why she would say that astrologers don't take into account the precession is because she has only been exposed to Western astrology, to tropical astrology. She's only been exposed to the system. And that's the problem with Western astrology, right? Because it doesn't match what's in the sky. She was accurate in saying that they assumed that the constellation placements roughly 2,000 some odd years ago is how it remains, right? But if you've been watching us, if you've been following our podcast, following other Vedic astrologers out there and different things like that, you know that that's not the way that we practice. What we produce as charts is what's matching in the sky at that particular time. Now, she also brought up an interesting point about, each constellation, being, equal size, which is true, right? Again, in Vedic astrology, we have the nakshatra system, okay? 27 nakshatras, all right? The nakshatras is how you account for this unequalness, right? Because, like for example, my moon is in Leo, right? And in the nakshatra, right, meaning like the subdivision of Leo that my moon is placed in is called Uttara Falguni. We talked about this in the previous episode about fire sign nakshatras. Make sure you check that out, right? But Uttara Falguni starts off in Leo, right? The first piece of Uttara Falguni is in the sign of Leo. The remaining 3 sections of Uttara Falguni is in Virgo, right? So that's how we kind of account for that. And I mean, if you look at, we got well over 100 some odd episodes and all types of content on Patreon and everything like that. Go watch it. Go check us out and look at how, looking at these nakshatras and all the different things that they embody, the symbols, the, different animals, different things like that they correspond to, how they just manifest. And we don't stretch, we just look at the charts and then we just go from there or whatnot. But the problem is that most people have only been exposed to Western astrology, and that is, to each his own, practice where you want to practice. But when we bring in the conversation about astronomy, they shouldn't even be talking to Western astrologers, in my view. All right, let's continue on.
Don't do that. And look, let's be honest. You can't divide people into these neat categories. There's almost 8 billion people on this planet. You're going to tell me that there's only 13 categories of what we are?
Exactly. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Right. Okay. So again, this is coming from Western astrology. All right. Tropical astrology, right? Because people go around and say, okay, what's your sign? Right. But for a Vedic astrologer, we just don't speak that way. Right. Because you have 7 planets plus the nodes of the moon, Rahu and Ketu. All right. You have your ascendant. Okay. So you got all these different placements that, all culminate together and produce, what we see as, a personality, as like your actual physical body. And then we also see kind of like your destiny, your life from all of these things working together. Now, there are more personal planets, more personal placements like your ascendant, your moon, and then, the sun being the one that contributes least to the personality per se. Is more of what you're kind of projecting to do. It's kind of like what you kind of came here to do. Is more of how we treat the sun. But the ascendant and the moon is definitely very, very personal placements, and they have a lot to do with how you think, how you move in the world, your worldview, the different talents, different things like that you come into the world, liabilities and assets that you come in the world with. So no, you don't fit people into these 12. I think she said 13 might be trying to, bring in, the Ophiuchus or whatever, zodiac sign in there or whatnot, but it doesn't work that way. But again, that's how Western astrology has been brought into the world. That's how people look at astrology. And I'm telling you, it kind of, it takes the practicality out of it. It takes people who could benefit from it. The world could benefit from it in a major way. But because of these different aspects, it scares people off. And I like I said, that's the main reason why we do what we do here or whatnot. But let me continue on. My head's about to explode listening to this already. I'm cool though. I'm not angry. It's just yikes.
I think sham is kind of it's a negative word, but from a scientific standpoint, we don't see that there's evidence that we can't make predictions on people's lives based on the positions of the stars.
Okay. What scientific evidence have you looked at to be able to do this? Again, right? Tropical, sidereal, right? Vedic astrology, Western astrology, okay? So you haven't approached this like you would in science, right? You haven't approached it like, being completely objective. Your own biases have crept into the way that you even view the evidence of prediction, all right? If you go and you watch our podcast, watch past episodes, you'll see that we've accurately predicted, economic downturns, all sorts of events, especially regarding when we start talking about mundane astrology or whatnot. Many years ago, for myself, I predicted my child's birth and her sex or whatnot. Now, some people say you could have just waited to that time. You don't do that. You don't do that if you serious about life. But the other part of it is the other person may not conceive. You understand what I'm saying? So I predicted it within the month, about three or 4 years prior to it happening, and forgot about it. But I told my mate about it back then, and then she reminded me of it, that you predicted it, that it would be December in this time period. It's because the way how both of our charts aligned or whatnot, and boom, baby. You understand what I'm saying? So I would ask any people who view themselves as being more scientific and stuff to remove the bias and approach it from a real objective perspective and try to really see if it's something there. And just keep in mind, like, I'm a scientist, right? I'm an engineer. My day formalized training, I do film, I do this, right? But my formalized training is a civil engineer. I've taken all types of physics, high levels of math that people would never even heard of. You understand what I'm saying? Chemistry, all of that or whatnot. So, and when you go to India, you'll find that a lot of astrologers are also engineers. They're also scientists. They're also professionals in the scientific mathematics, science and math related fields. So again, I would say you got to expand your horizon and like remove the bias so you can really see, the accuracy in these predictions and whatnot. But people just throw stuff out there, and if you say it like firm and then you have the credentials behind it, then people believe you. Like, there's no scientific evidence that, you never even study it. I can tell. All right, let's keep it going.
Can the disagreeers come forward?
I like the way they do that platform, by the way.
I practice Western tropical astrology. And so the tropical system of astrology goes off of the equinoxes and the solstice. It has nothing to do with the constellations, what you know of astrology in the Western world.
So why are you even talking about astronomers?
Astrology, and that's just one system in astrology, right? There's tropical and sidereal. Those are the two systems, and they're separated by 23.4 degrees. It all depends on what system works for you.
So does that mean you have like a choice, or you see what everything means, and you're like, okay, I want to pick that one. I want to study that one.
It's based off of what really resonates, right? And you'll know what resonates with you.
See, I heard when dudes started talking in the clouds at the beginning, I knew he was going to go down this path of resonation, right? What resonates with you? listen, man, that's just code for what you like more, right? And you can't, again, that's why people don't view astrology as a science or whatnot, because you're over here bringing feelings, you're bringing your emotions into the table. This has nothing to do with this, right? I don't care if you don't like your chart, okay? It is what it is. This is your chart. You know what I'm saying? That's like, I don't care that you don't like the family that you were born in. That's what you were born into. It is what it is. Now, you'll be better off spending your time trying to understand it and how to optimize, your opportunities based on that. But this whole business about what resonates with me and this doesn't resonate with you, this is nonsense. This is complete nonsense. And this is why people don't take astrology serious or whatnot, okay? A lot of people don't even know, right, that if that tropical astrology doesn't match the actual placements in the sky. They don't even know that, right? They find that out later or whatnot, so like it's not like they lead up front. And then now I've seen a big push of how, people approach it is basically like, hey, yo, this doesn't have anything to do with constellations. And that's cool, but you shouldn't even be having these conversations with astronomers then, because it's a different system, right? Now, me personally, I also practice another form of astrology called Bazi, okay, which is 4 pillars astrology. It's a Chinese astrology, okay? Now, tropical astrology kind of promotes itself as being a seasonal system, okay? From my experience, it confuses things because you're taking things that's happening in, the sky, out in space, and then you're only saying that you're going to deal with it from a seasonal perspective here on Earth. Those are two different things. The Bazi system, based on 5-element theory, fire, earth, metal, water, wood, that is a better seasonal astrology system because it doesn't necessarily take into account completely. It does have some connection to actual star systems and different things like that, but you could practice the system it completely on its own without even knowing anything about the constellations or whatnot. It's about what's happening here on Earth, right? That's where seasons are relevant or whatnot. So it's confusing things, right? But here's what I'm talking about. I knew that brother was going to go there with that when I heard him speaking at the beginning. Yeah, man, I it is not what resonates with you. There is, people don't like it, but I'm just telling you, there is a science to this. Let's talk about how astrology even came about, right? So we're talking about ancient times, ancient cultures, okay? Imagine being able to look at the sky 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 years ago. You can see the whole thing. You can see everything at night. You ain't got these big, skylines with all these big skyscrapers and all these lights that's blinding you from being able to see the stars. You can see it very clear or whatnot. And you're watching it and you're observing how it impacts the society. You understand what I'm saying? Overall, and over thousands of years of doing this analysis, then you come and you put it together as a complete system or whatnot. That's how astrology was developed or whatnot. Western astrology comes along much later. I know some people try to say that, they started at the same time. This is not true. Again, this is people just defending the thing that they are used to or whatnot. But the truth is that the sidereal system far predates Western astrology. All right, no disrespect to the Western astrologers or whatnot, but it's just the truth. And in Africa, okay, ancient, when we're talking about ancient Egypt and Nubia or whatnot, and even to this day, right, the Dogon tribe from Mali, they still practice sidereal astrology. Their whole spiritual system is based on the sidereal placements or whatnot. And if you don't know anything about the Dogons, look them up, because they were able to cite Sirius B, all right, a star that you cannot see with the naked eye, right, that the Western world didn't discover, I think, until, I want to say the 50s. I'll look it up and double check that, but I don't think they discovered it to the 50s. But the Dogon have been doing this for many, many, many centuries or whatnot as a tradition or whatnot without any real advanced technology in a physical sense, but they were able to see it from a spiritual perspective, and it was verified, or whatnot. And India, of course, have been practicing sidereal astrology for thousands and thousands and thousands of years or whatnot, and they've written about it. So again, you got to expand your palette and learn some more or whatnot. But yeah, this, jeez.
You'll get this inner feeling through your chakral system, and you'll know right away.
Whether you resonate with Vedic astrology.
What are you talking about, man? Like, you're sitting here, you're talking to an astronomer, right? And that's another thing. These people, they don't even understand the chakra system like that. That's the problem. That's the problem with kind of today. It's like, it's the information age, right? But it's not the knowledge age. It's not the wisdom age, right? We don't have like this age of booming, sages, true gurus and stuff like that, seers and different things like that, that are out here bringing this information, bringing these teachings to the world. You got any Joe Blow out there, just finding information, studying it, which is good, but they're over there talking about it and speaking about it before they've actually mastered anything or whatnot. Start talking about chakras. You're talking to an astronomer. They know nothing about the chakra system. And if you're going to talk about chakras, then you really need to know what you're talking about. There's a couple books that I would really, recommend to somebody if you wanted to know like truly about chakras. One by one of, a teacher of mine, Rav Men. He has a book called Light on Kundalini Yoga, probably the best book on the chakra system that I've ever come across. And then there's another book out there by a guru named Goswami. He has a book called Laya Yoga, Laya Yoga, or whatnot. This is an excellent book. It's a thick book. It's like a textbook. So it's not flowery or nothing like that. It's very, kind of hardcore in that sense. But it's an excellent book if you wanted to know anything about the chakra system. But I don't even understand why he's even talking about that or whatnot. And then that's the other thing. How are you going to talk about the chakra system, which is something that is a part of, as far as like that nomenclature, you understand what I'm saying? That is something that works hand in hand with Vedic astrology, right? The form of astrology that has been preserved and developed in India, right? It's a part of that system, that chakra, that language, using that nomenclature to explain that phenomena in our spirit comes from that. So how can you talk about chakras and be practicing Western Greek astrology? Makes no sense. Let's continue on.
Or Western astrology depends on whether you're more interested on using astrology for predictions or whether you're more interested on using astrology to understand yourself and validate and affirm the things that you feel in yourself.
Wrong again. Why do I keep hearing people say that, but that's not true. That is not true at all. Vedic astrology is used in both applications, from personality and analysis and for prediction. All right, it's not that is just totally false. Where do they get these people from? After this, I gotta look it up and see who these astrologers are. Shout out to them. It takes a lot to be able to go in there on a large platform like that and be able to explain yourself and, debate, somebody that that you're probably not going to be able to convince anyway and different things like that. So I get that. But geez, that is just not true. And then why did they mix it up? Why is everybody on here a Western astrologer? Come on.
You say astrology, meaning that the stars do matter, right? So what part do stars play in Western tropical astrology?
It's not so much being born around the time that the constellation is in a certain place in the sky. You have this chart wheel and it's divided equally in 12 parts. So the rising would be dependent on that wheel, what sign, and not constellation, but what sign, depending on the tropical divisions, is on the eastern horizon. Then the rising is the first house, or it's the cusp of the first house.
If you're practicing Western astrology, you're not going to have the right sign on the horizon, right? So that they're contradicting themselves. And then the astronomer is looking at it and they're picking that out because they understand, they know what's physically out there. They know how that works. But what she said just contradicted themselves because Western astrology, again, they assume that these positions are fixed in the not assume, but their system is developed on a fixed kind of orientation of the planets, specifically the sun in relation to the zodiac. And if that's the case, your rising, okay, would be incorrect, right? Those of you who don't know, your ascendant or your rising sign, as they usually refer to it in the tropical Western astrology system, right? We refer to it as the ascendant or the lagna. Okay, it's basically it's the sign that's rising at the time of your birth, right? And then just, as far as how it relates to the sun, I mean to the not Western, but just, to the transit, to the movement of the sun, right? At sunrise, okay? At sunrise, if you're born at sunrise, the rising sign at that time will always be the sign or the constellation that corresponds to where the sun is at in the actual sign at that time. You understand what I'm saying? If that makes sense. So like, if it's, right now we're here. Today is actually May 21st, 2022 or whatnot. And, the sun at this particular moment is in Taurus, right? Actually, if you go and you look in the sky, you go to, get a telescope or something like that. And if you are able to look at where the sun is at, okay, at sunrise during this particular time frame, it will be in Taurus or whatnot. But if you're a Western astrologer, you think the sun is in Gemini right now. Or let me see, is it quite? Yeah. They think the sun is in Gemini right now, or whatnot, or right at the end of Taurus. I have to calculate it and see, but it doesn't match, is what I'm getting at. So she's contradicting herself. Let's keep it going. And I don't think I'm gonna watch this.
And there's 12 houses.
What does that mean? Because I hear that, and again, I'm not familiar with it. It just kind of sounds like a lot of
Gibberish.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you think of a clock, the hands pointing to the numbers is not time. They just represent time. So it's the same when you think of the stars. The planets, where they are in the chart, are not the energies that we're looking at. They're just representations of those energies. It's just the realm of possibilities that the way that you express action in your life could show up.
When we categorize different
What are they
planets
talking
in
about,
astrology,
man?
it's just to give characteristics on the specific energies. To touch on a point that you brought up, like how can we be here and planets all the way out there, how are they affecting us? Energy cannot be created or destroyed, right? We all heard that in our science classes growing up. So we're all bits and pieces.
That's not necessarily true. This is like essentially you're talking about like kind of conservation of energy and stuff like that, right? But like we live in a universe that, for example, may be infinite.
Yeah.
We don't know. And we never can, because we're limited to a specific distance to how far we can see.
I guess what I was getting to is we're all bits and pieces of energy. So everything that exists in our universe is energy,
I
right?
think that we're getting confused with our definitions of energy. I think that's where like we have a different definition of, like more scientific definition of energy, and you guys have more of a
It's
like a personality, like spiritual, yeah, like that. Like
Yeah, I think there's for science, like they have to be very careful
It's
about
really
how they
same.
use the term energy, because a lot of the times it can get hijacked, or even delving into the world of like quantum physics, they use the word quantum in a way that it's not supposed to be represented as.
A former Goldman Sachs PhD.
Skip that real quick. Yeah, so, again, this is interesting or whatnot, the way how, these these folks is going about explaining this particular thing with the system and stuff like that. And, they're talking to the wrong people. Long story short, they're talking to the wrong people or whatnot. And I think, I don't know, sometimes I think these platforms do that on purpose because they're, they already have their bias and stuff like that. So they're like, let me just pick any Joe Blow. But it doesn't work like that. You wouldn't do that with astronomy. You wouldn't pick any astronomer or quote unquote someone who says that they're an astronomer without having the proper credentials and different things like that. So I don't know. Maybe that's something to get into in the future or something like that, you know, because I think I definitely look at astrology as a strong science. It's the other side of the coin of astronomy. And yeah, I think it should be treated like that. It used to be practiced like that back in the day, but let's keep it moving.
My beliefs are supported by science.
So you guys are probably like, astrology is not a science, but it is, because it's its own separate field. Astrology has been a practice that has been used for civilizations.
What is a science to you? What does science mean to you?
Now, a science is anything that can be applied to the practical realm. I know we were saying a lot of talk about, oh, this is interpretive, or this could be used for predictive measures, but it is something that is practical, right? I have to use math, and I have to use other basic science skills in order to pull up a chart. I'm looking at degree placement, right?
I think that fields could use science and still not be science. You could use math and science and it still not be a science. I think science
what's
comes
your
with
degree? I'm sorry, what's
science.
your definition of science?
I think science comes with fact. There's a scientific method, so you start with a theory and then you prove it at the end. Say we randomly discover a new planet in our solar system,
sure.
okay? Will it change what you guys
Absolutely,
believe?
because that would be something that we'd have to sit and try to study. We'd have to conduct research.
No. So this is the problem with Western astrology again, right? Because you notice a lot of people, and people are going to say I'm being divisive with this, and I'm not trying to be. I'm really just trying to, you know, really honestly, we're just showing the differences or whatnot. But, you know, in Western astrology, they take into account a lot of these different asteroids, you know, and different things like that. And then they also elevate some of the outer planets, right? And when I mean outer planets, I'm talking about Neptune, Uranus, Pluto. They elevate them to positions that we and the ancients did not elevate them to. We knew about these planets, but they don't rule the core constellations. Like, we don't use them the same way or whatnot. And I mean, if you watch our show, we got an episode where we talk about the outer planets and how they're used in Vedic astrology. You know, it's a different way that we approach it, because those planets move much slower than all the planets that, you know, from Saturn coming in. Those planets move much slower. Most of us won't, you know, be able to see those planets return back to the placement that they were when we were born in our lifetimes. So we don't use them that way. You understand what I'm saying? But we can get more into that, or you can go check out that episode where we get deep into that particular subject of the outer planets and stuff like that. So, but if we did discover that there was another planet out there that we weren't looking at, no, it wouldn't change the science. It wouldn't, because the science is built on the core planets, the first 7 planets, and the nodes of the moon, and then the ones that we know about right now. It doesn't change it. Okay, all right. So let's keep it moving.
On that planet, just as
and again, even if we did want to consider it and look at it, we would need more time to study it. But it still wouldn't, in essence, wouldn't be a core thing. It wouldn't be a primary thing that you would consider when looking at a chart. You understand what I'm saying? It might be something secondary consideration, something a third, you know, consideration or something like that you look in just to fine tune what you're doing, but it wouldn't be primary.
well as you guys would have to do. You guys would just be applying it in a different way. So I definitely look at our field as a science.
That was a bad explanation too. You didn't do good with that.
Are my beliefs backed by science? No, they're not. In fact, it's the opposite. Most scientists would say that I'm crazy. Do I believe that astrology is a type of science, a soft science? Yes, because I study psychology, I study therapy. There are people who say that therapy and psychology are not sciences. I also think that psychology and therapy are soft science.
Yeah, you know, again, it is what makes it unscientific is the person, right? It's the person that's in what's, you know, kind of being promoted, right? You know, belief is not, I mean, belief is something that I don't hold dear to me. You understand what I'm saying? I try to know, right? I don't care about what I believe. I want to know, okay? So too many people today, just in all aspects, focus too much on belief, and they don't want to go through the actual steps to know what you're talking about. You understand what I'm saying? And that's the problem here. And I'm gonna watch a little bit more of this, and then we're gonna close this one down real quick or whatnot. Uh-oh. Here we go.
Scientific method, they are rooted more in the person, in who that person is, and the potential of that human being and their energies.
But there's a difference there because in psychology, we could scan the brain and see the chemical imbalances. We could see what's missing. We could see the neurons firing. We could see exactly why things are happening, and we could prove that. So,
But you can't always prove the treatment.
But we can also
The
look at a
treatment can't always be
chart. We can also look at a chart and look at how the energies are interacting with a person and correlate it to what is on the chart.
I think energies and like neurons.
And
and things like that
I
are
keep using
different. Yeah.
energies, and that's also what I'm trying to say. Somebody had to.
They're right, man. I'm with the astronomers on this one. They keep using energy in this weird. I mean, I get what they're saying, but you know, that's, yeah, yeah. They're not. They didn't pick a good group of people. Next time, do it with Vedic astrologists. Middle ground. Come talk to us. Come talk to us. We'll come sit down, and we'll be glad to do it. Me and Rob will come in here and light this thing up. You know what I'm saying? Let's get it.
Be like, why is that energy affecting me in this way? Somebody had to sit and study these things. A team had to do research on these things.
I don't have science to prove why I believe what I believe. It's just, I've been studying this for 7 years and I've been practicing professionally for 4 years. And astrology has not led me wrong. Like, I don't miss.
Is there a way you can tell if you're wrong or right?
Well, yeah,
in
because
astrology?
I speak to my clients. I never tell my clients, like, this definitely happened for you, and if you don't agree, then you're wrong.
Now, here's what I would say, is that there are Western astrologers out there that are very good. They're good at making predictions. But what I found is that those astrologers, when they're making their predictions, they don't really deal with the signs that much. They deal with the aspects, right? The transit and the aspects. The relation in an aspect is basically how the planets are relating to each other, right? You know, so like this planet might be, you know, opposed this planet, right? That's going to be true in both systems, okay? You know, a planet is squaring, you understand, another planet. You know, that's going to be true in both systems. So a lot of times they stick to that particular way of prediction, and that's why they're able to make accurate predictions. So they almost ignore the signs when it comes to that or whatnot. So that, you know, I could believe that.
I'll say, oh, this could be an indication of this. Is this true? And they'll say yes, or if they say no, I'll say, well, maybe it can be interpreted in this different way. That's also where the interpretive thing
I don't like
comes
the way
in,
she
is that
did
it doesn't play out the exact same every time, which is why it can't be pinned down by
And
science.
that's why you can't call it a science.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true either, because in science, you deal with probabilities, right? When you start getting on a higher level of science, things are not happens 100% of the time. It happens within a range of probability. We would bring astrology into that realm of things, right? We're talking about a probability. And there's other things that you can go and you can check, like, you know, we deal with divisional charts, right? We deal with divisional charts and different things like that, that we can go and keep seeing if you know, confluence, right? We talk about confluence, where you see a particular things happening in multiple different applications or whatnot. If you see it in the birth chart, you see it in this divisional chart, you see it in that divisional chart. You know, if it has something to do with another person and you see it in their chart, then you seeing a pattern, and then you can mail it in. You can say, all right, this one is going to happen, right? So you need confluence to make your predictions more precise. And then, of course, you need accurate times of birth and different things like that to be able to make your predictions more precise. But you know, just like in science, right? Like, okay, as a civil engineer, if you're in hydrology, right? You know, you will design a subdivision, for example, to be able to withhold a once in a 25-year storm, right? Meaning a storm that may happen once every 25 years. Maybe every 5 years, you should expect 3 inches of rain to fall, but a 25-year storm in this area might be 8 inches. So you build a subdivision to be able to handle that. Now, does that mean that in 25 years, you're going to have a storm that brings down 8 inches of rain? No. But it's probable. And that's how you look at astrology. So the astronomer right there, she's wrong. She's not looking at science in the correct way. She's, you know, kind of firm in her position on that. So let's keep it moving.
It's not reproducible. Science is something that is rigorously tested, and it's stuff that's reproducible. You have to be able to reproduce results. What astrology is interpretive. So you might misinterpret things because it's not really reproducible. Like, you're not gonna always get somebody right. The reason why I didn't step forward for this prompt was because I think it's irrelevant. Like, I think beliefs are different than facts, and, you know,
Right.
I might really believe in God, for example. I might, right? And that's not backed by science.
You know,
It is backed by science, but again, you haven't expanded your palette, right? You like I told you, belief is irrelevant. You need to know, right? So the fact that you have science, the fact that we can build a periodic table, the fact that we have laws of nature tells you that there is a creator. This is not, we don't live in a random world, right? Sometimes patterns are too complex for us to understand, but you don't live in a random world, right? I remember when I was taking computer science and we tried to, you know, one of the first things they have you build is a little program called random number, right? And you build it and you realize that you can't recreate random. You can't create randomness. It's just a complicated algorithm or that is using to generate these numbers in a very complex way that you can't predict the next one, but it's not really random. And then you really can't recreate randomness in life in general. So, you know, like, again, this they need to talk to the right people. Middle ground, if you see this, we're definitely open to come talk to you all. Let's do it.
science is science, right? So it doesn't matter if I believe astronomy. It doesn't matter what I believe. It just is or isn't.
Right.
Celestial objects influence people's mood.
After this segment, we're going to stop it up.
I mean, if I'm driving home, maybe I had a bad day and I see the moon coming up, it's so beautiful. Like, how can that not affect your mood, right? It's just so gorgeous. I do a lot of astronomy outreach. You know, I show people the planets or the moon through telescopes. Or total solar eclipse that we've seen, we were all like in tears. It was just so beautiful. So yes, definitely things that happen up there can affect.
You know how the moons affect bodies of water, right? The closer the moon is, the higher the waves are. The farther away it is, the lower the waves are, right? That's why we have tides, kind of, sort of, right? But we're made up of 70% water. The moon in astrology talks about our intuition, our feelings, our emotions. There are so many other planets and celestial bodies that are definitely doing that. So I'm so happy that you said yes, because it is definitely true.
I'd love to know what you think about the correlation between the
halfway.
28-day cycle of the moon and the female hormonal cycle.
There must be something there. I'm not an evolutionary biologist, so I don't really know.
Yeah, I'm a Cancer rising, so I feel the moon, and I know from personal experience that, yeah, planets affect the mood.
You know, 60 pounds doesn't feel.
All right, so they could have slammed this one duck. I'm not about to, you know, kill this one or whatnot. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. You know, once again, shout out to Middle Ground for even having that conversation. I think that was a good you know, program to put on and stuff like that. I just think that they need to explore out, get some more astrologers in there, get a blend. You know, do some research before you just crank out, you know, an episode like that. Like I said, you need to talk to us, talk to Cosmic Convos or whatnot, so you can come up there and you know, really put forth a real interesting debate. All right. But thank you all for tuning in again. Make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. Share this with your people. Hit that notification bell so you can see when we're live and we're locked in. And we'll be back with another one of these real soon. All right. Peace. you.